As time goes on, we see a devaluation of currencies. More people seek more income, and so they look to savings accounts. Nothing to gain there, so they look to mutual funds. No gains there either. What about stocks? Great returns there. And so it goes. More and more wealth is concentrated today than ever before. Companies bigger than countries. Companies who can bankrupt countries in a flash. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today, we are going to look at what's happening on Wall Street. Andy Hall, who is nicknamed the god of the oil and energy markets, posted some losses. He's closing up his hedge fund. He's not the only one. That's the issue. In fact, there have been many, and it will shock you to realize how much of a trend this really is. Hedge fund liquidations in 2016 surpassed the post-financial crisis peak, despite the industry surging past the $3 trillion milestone. One of the important points that they make here is that there is a consolidation, and the consolidation is existing within the financial system, but if you look at it closely, it's also within the political as well. This is underscoring the shifting investor risk tolerance, steadily increasing concentration of investor capital in mid to large hedge fund firms. Companies are getting bigger. The bigger they are, they're getting bigger. And there are many, many companies that are simply being pushed to the curb. And it seems like this is going to be a trend going forward, where the big companies get bigger, small companies go out the door, and you have the mom and pop shop to be non-existent. This is all allowed to happen. It's being done on purpose because they don't want people shopping at the mom and pops. They don't want you and I to transact between each other. They want the ability for the big box stores and all of the government controlled entities to be ruling everything and being dictating what products you can have, what services you can have, how much they cost, and everything else. I mean, this is a totalitarian system, and it's working quite well for them. You know, essentially they're talking about other strategists and investors, and Warren Buffett says that it's a very silly thing to have a hedge fund and you should have a passively managed fund. And you know, I really think they're all sort of in the same pile here. If the stock market is doing well, then you can do well. If you don't have a bias, like this individual here probably had so much of a heavy influence within the oil and energy markets that he was unwilling to look elsewhere. And if you're going to do this type of job, you have to have no bias when it comes to that. Or else, how would you ever be able to be successful? Things work in cycles. Right now, the energy markets aren't doing well. So why would I invest in the energy markets if I'm in this field, of course? And if I see that things are getting too hot in a tech bubble, let's say, well, why would I want all my money in there just because that I manage the tech fund, for example? It doesn't work like that. It shouldn't work like that. But a lot of people get screwed over every single day. I talk to them and they tell me, why are US equities doing so well, yet my fund performance isn't? So what do you say? What do you say to that? Countless people tell me that all the time. The most closures since 2008, and you can see this right here. The blue line is launches and the red is liquidations. Prior to the financial crisis, we saw this increasing, obviously, downturn. But what we have seen here is it's sort of waning off now, and this is going in a different direction. You can see the closures that are persisting, and over 1,000, believe it or not. And I believe, yes, this is since 2016. Yeah, that's in 2016 that we see over 1,000 hedge funds closing. It's not 5 or 10 or 20 or 100. We're talking about 1,000. That is very significant when you think about the amount of money that a hedge fund usually operates with. And we've seen the same thing going on in Canada as well. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was what Warren Buffett touched on, and that is the so-called passively managed. Now, in that realm anyway, we're talking about ETFs. Exchange traded funds pulled in record inflows for the third year in a row in 2016, intensifying competitive pressure on investment managers that try to beat the market. So essentially what these ETFs may do is get the index. They try to just invest in the index itself, try to sort of base their trades on the general performance of the market, okay? And that way individuals can say that if the market's going to rise, then I can just sort of ride the wave. A lot of people have done that. ETFs have been relatively successful, some of them, at doing so, and not necessarily investing in one or two funds and not necessarily day trading. They are sort of loosely and lightly managed, and many people have found this to be successful for themselves. I think that this is part of it. I mean, ETFs are small when compared to, let's say, the bond market, for example, but it's still significant. So that's one direction that I see people going, average individuals. Instead of putting their money with a hedge fund and trying to earn so much profit at the so much risk, maybe they have a lot of money already and they simply think, well, you know what? I'm fine with just a few percent per year, and I think that this ETF will be able to do so, so I'll invest in that. And that's what some people have done. And we've also seen, look at Japan, where they're buying up all their ETFs. And then we have individual investors, a lot of individual investors, and I have personally witnessed this myself on the trading floors. You see every television on CNBC, Bloomberg, BNN, all the financial channels depending on where you live. And what do? They're listening to guys like Jim Cramer. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily following every single piece of his advice, but they do listen, they talk to each other about what they say, and then they continue their job. So it has influence on them. And this right here is immediately before Bear Stearns, the whole Bear Stearns fiasco, and he said, do not pull your money out of Bear Stearns. That's crazy. Don't do it, he yells at the camera. And what happened? Well, seems like they had a rough ride. Don't listen to anyone. You're listening to me right now. I try not to give any advice at all. Don't take my advice. Take the information, take the sources that I use and go off and do your own research. I'm simply an aggregator of information. I take it from all different sources, white papers. I take it from government statistics. I take it from the different charts. Take it from everywhere, all over the world, mainstream media, alternative media, everything else. I put that together into these little packages, 10-minute videos. You watch them, but then you don't take my advice. You simply go out there and use that knowledge to your advantage. I hope that I make myself clear. Myself, I'm not a financial expert. There's a lot of people out there that put that right on their page. Financial expert. Jim Cramer would put that on his resume, on his page. Financial expert. Look, if these people continue to say that the stock market will go up in a bull market, they'll be right consistently, day after day after day. But when the market's heading down, what are they now? Don't take anyone's advice. Use the information for yourself. I'm going to change gears here for a few articles here. The president of China is talking about cyberspace controls. They ran a drill and they were working on shutting websites down. That's what this is about, including tough new data surveillance and censorship rules. This push is now ramping up ahead of an expected consolidation of power of the Communist Party Congress this autumn. And of course, consolidation. That's the way this works. Within the governments themselves, local level, state, cities, municipalities, everything along the line, and then tearing down the borders. That is the ultimate plan of the globalists. That's what they're doing. The drill asked internet data centers to practice shutting down target web pages speedily and report relevant details to the police, including the affected website's contract details, IP address, and server location. If you misbehave, you will be shut down. YouTube censors all the time, Facebook censors, Twitter, all the social media, they're already doing it. And so they're going to the internet. I mean, the internet in some ways is the Wild West. And I think that's a good thing. Despite that there's a lot of bad stuff on there, I think that having it be like that is better than having the government control it. I don't trust the government one bit. I simply don't. That's my personal opinion. All right, this individual, Gavin Newsom, lieutenant governor, running to succeed Jerry Brown. He talked about this that I was upset about. You know, we required composting in San Francisco. That was controversial. They had garbage police out there checking in my cans to make sure that the eggshells were in the appropriate bin. Think about that for a moment. The tattletale society that was seen during the Soviet Union, that was foreshadowed in 1984, George Orwell. It exists today in many forms. Talk to somebody who lived in that Soviet era, and you will find out about the tattletale system and how it worked. I've done that myself. It's frightening, and in general, it's what you've heard. That's it for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. When you give me a thumbs up, it pushes these videos higher up into the YouTube search rankings. So I appreciate that every time you do so. And last but not least, if you found the video informative, and then I know you will find my books, The Money GPS and my new release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. The first book is about the 4 asset classes and how to profit from them, whereas my new book gets into the Money GPS strategy, which is talking about self-sufficiency, solar panels, earning income, and so on and so forth. You can check those out at Amazon. Links are in the description below. Take care.